Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Blind Press YouTube channel. And Star Trek stream time is here, and we are talking about Trek Tech. And I am joined by the One Ton Hammer,
Hello.
Skeptalk,
Hi, everybody.
and welcome back, Irate Prostate.
What up, people?
And Functional may be joining us. He's been not feeling the best, so he might not be.
He's not functional.
He is not functional right now. No, he is not fully functional. Anyway,
Our functional unit is not functional.
this
But you
unit.
said
Is that an insult in Star Trek terminology?
It's funny because in one series it's an insult because when the is it the Doomsday Machine that is like, this unit does not function correctly, and Kirk's like, it functions just fine or something like that, right? But then in the Next Generation, Data is like, I am fully functional.
I'm fully functional.
It's
programmed in multiple techniques.
Yeah. So he's,
That's right.
In one series
It's
it
all
is an
good.
insult,
Show
and in the
Mag
next
Daddy.
series it's a sexual innuendo. But today we are going to talk about technology from Star Trek, both that exists now that Star Trek has inspired, and some of the tech from Trek that we wish was real. So I figured we would start out by talking about some of the stuff that we already have that Star Trek has kind of pushed or inspired to be created.
Like 3D printing.
Like 3D printing, like
Pads.
iPads or tablets in general.
Flip phones.
Flip phones.
Tricorders.
Yeah. The thing that kind of really gets me, I was thinking about it the other day, and I'm like, well, if you think about it, virtual assistants have really been inspired, because what do they do all the time? It's computer, do this, right?
Yep. How's that different from saying Siri
and what
or
are
Alexa?
we doing now? Hey, X device.
I almost used the term that would launch my phone's personal assistant.
It.
I almost just said it, and it would have just said no, actually I have configured it so it won't say my real name, but it would have said something if I would have used that phrase.
Oh, you should. It's funny.
Oh, you've got voice recognition set up so it will call you by your first name. That's what I did too.
It's really amazing.
I have it so if I ever mentioned to say it, it would call me by somebody else's name.
Oh,
so
very good.
If I was ever on the air,
that's
and
smart.
I said that thing, it would come up and say, "Hello, Alfred," which is not my first name. So
right.
I have it on good authority. Alfred is actually your first name.
I am Batman's butler.
Nice.
Of course, Dwayne.
You would be. It would really amuse you if you were listening in on one of the rooms on Clubhouse that is like full of blind people, because they tend to have quite a lot of personal assistant devices, and if some of them are not using headphones and one of them activates theirs, everyone else is like, stop personal assistant, stop talking. It's really kind of amusing, but that is definitely something that it would be straight out of Star Trek.
I want to just maybe we can do a little context setting here, because
Sure.
I think a lot of what has gone on in the Star Trek universe has to be viewed in the context of the times in which it happened. Now, think back to 1966. Wasn't that the first year of TOS? And the tech that was available back then was nothing like what we have now.
Yeah.
I mean, for them to come up with the idea of the communicators, the tricorders,
Transporters.
the transporter. Oh my God,
Warp
the
technology.
A lot of that stuff.
Imagination is amazing. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Irate.
A lot of that stuff came from budgetary restrictions, right? And
What can we do on the cheap?
Exactly. It was like, okay, so let's invent this thing that like transport people from one place to another.
We can't land the ship every episode. We have to have a way of getting them down there that doesn't take forever.
Right.
Okay, well, let's make transporters. Okay, that works.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's like in one of my favorite movies. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole here just real briefly.
Go for it.
Is called "Thank You for Smoking," and if you have never seen this movie, I urge you to watch it. It is a good time all the way through. It was written by William F. Buckley's son. Chris Buckley wrote the script for it. And he is a devastatingly funny humor writer. He's a humorist in Washington and a columnist in Washington, but mostly a humorist. And so at any rate, the thing that I was, oh shit, where was I going? I was going to take that from something that I derived from that movie. Well, anyway, go see the movie. And I was
about technology.
I was trying to think of.
Thanks.
God, I hate being old. Your brain just doesn't fucking work. I'm sorry. I'm so frustrated.
Dude, I do that. Like, I'm 31, and I'm like, a lot of times
nothing but
I'm
good
like,
times I had in my friend. Well, anyway, see the movie. Thank You for Smoking. But I can't remember what it was. But there was something in that reminded me of something from Star Trek, and I had a connection there. Maybe you can find it. That'll be the assignment for next week. Somebody come back and tell me what they
go watch that movie and figure out what Skep was talking about.
Interpret his thoughts.
Oh, jeez. I remember what it was.
Yay!
And so in there, one of the actors comes in, and he's the Hollywood fixer.
Yeah.
He makes all the big deals in Hollywood. He fixes scripts. He does everything. And it's played by an actor. I can't remember his name. And it's a really famous actor, but I can't remember his name. Rob something. He played the deaf mute in or the mute in The Stand. Anyway, he just absolutely steals the show. Comes in and says, one of the cool things about writing science fiction movies is you can do anything. You know, how do I get Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie to smoke cigarettes in space? I have to have them smoking cigarettes in space. That is so sexy. It's unbelievable. Angelina Jolie smoking a cigarette is the most amazing thing ever. And he says, with science fiction, you just say, oh, it's a good thing we invented the blah, blah, blah pill back in 2015, or 2251 or whatever. And now smoking is not only good, not bad for you, it's good for you in nutrition, because it turns the nicotine into something, so at any rate. And there's a lot of that in TOS. And I think that diminishes as the series goes on, as some of these dreams were realized by real technology. The type of Imagineering, so to speak, copyright Disney, that went on in the later series was more subtle, more intellectual, less blatant, less of a thing to make smoking okay, because you're exactly right, Hammer. You had to have a way to get people from point A to point B. And space, in case you have not seen the blue dot picture, is really fucking big.
Yeah.
And so beaming people around at the speed of light was just a perfect solution. That's an interesting thing. What is the speed of a transporter?
Well, it certainly gets faster as you go through the series.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's actually super light speed, don't you think?
No, I mean like but if you even count the like if you I've done this, right? I've counted in TOS and Enterprise when they finally started transporting. I count and it takes about 10 to 15 seconds for that transporter sound to stop.
But you
And
don't
when
know.
you
You
go
don't
in-
know how much of that is power supply.
And right,
you know,
but
it's-
and then you get into TNG and Voyager and DS9, and it is like 3 seconds.
yeah.
It's crazy.
That's something I always wanted to see in whatever the successive versions of Trek was going to be. I wanted them to solve the problem of interdimensional transport because they couldn't do it in TNG because it would hurt you. Remember, Beverly had to try to heal people who were using interdimensional transport, and they couldn't do it because it doesn't work on organic material. But that's something I would like to have seen like in Picard. That would have been a great thing to have in Picard, that they've gotten past the regular old transporter and they've moved into interdimensional transport because it was so fast. It was like, wow, it was done.
I liked
You know?
I would have liked to see more of the transporting at warp. That was cool.
What do you mean transporting at warp?
What is it, child?
He's doing a watch theme.
Yes, why are you here?
Sorry.
Give me a hug first.
Can play big games.
You already played video games. Go hang out with Daddy and your brother.
Enjoy every one of those blind press. Enjoy every one.
So, ask Daddy to plug it in. My charger's in the kitchen. Close the door. Your tablet's about to die.
There was this thing in the original series. There was this thing in the original series. They did a making of the Doomsday Machine. You just mentioned the Doomsday Machine earlier, and they mentioned that show won an award for its sound. It won. I think it won a couple of awards, but I don't remember exactly what it was. It was probably an industry award of some sort. But there's a scene where Kirk transports from one place to another. I don't remember exactly where it was, but they make a point to saying that the sound was so good that you can take the transporter effect out and just listen to the background music, and that background music sounds like he's transporting.
Yeah, it does. It really does. I've noticed that when I watched that episode, because of I'm a lot more. I that's what I notice, obviously, right?
Right.
The sound.
But what they do in the making of is they take out the sound of the transport and then they play the scene, and it's like, wow, the transporter sound is completely missing from this. Yet I can tell exactly what was happening just by listening to the music, because the music is like, I can't obviously do it vocally myself, but the music's like.
Yeah,
Like,
it's that trill.
He's transport. Yes.
Yeah, that
there's
up
that
and
sound.
down,
Right.
that arpeggiated trill
Yes.
of sound that just works. Are you all right, sir?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm sorry. I
It's
forgot
okay.
to turn off my phone, and it turned out to be kind of an important call for someone else in the family. So, anyway, sorry. Yes, distraction over, and phone has been removed from the office, so we're good. Sorry about that,
I turned
guys.
mine off.
Yeah, I should have. I got in. I was fighting to get home to get here in time for the stream, and you know how that is.
Yep.
There's stuff from Star Trek that can equate to what we have today, but it's not really the same thing. It's close. It's kind of the same thing. Like we talk about flip phones and can you really pick up your phone right now and say Kirk to Enterprise or Kirk or Skep to so and so and have it just automatically connect immediately? No. it still has
Which
to.
would be cool.
You can talk to your personal assistant and tell your personal assistant to dial, and then you have to wait for the dialing to take place, and the other person. So it's kind of the same, but not quite.
Yeah, it's basically an engineering thing right now, and it's going to go through enhancement after enhancement. Eventually, they'll get to where they can recognize a timbre, or there'll be some key thing that you do to activate the phone, and then it will be as though it were another person right there with you.
Right
but we
now,
do have walkie-talkies.
Stop barking! If you bark again, I will turn you into a hamburger. Seriously.
If you right now, the best analogy I have to Star Trek for what we do is when you've got somebody connecting database to or comlink to comlink, and you go like, computer, establish a comlink with blah 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 blah, and then you have to wait for the computer to establish connection, and for the person, like, that's what I think is pretty close to what we have right now is that type of communication. Like if you're like on a ship and you're trying to connect to a starbase or something like that. That's what my analogy is for that.
It's an interesting thing living in a universe where you can't get to the house next door. And that's basically the way our universe is set up. We as life forms do not have long enough lifespan. We're not hardy enough to survive in space.
No.
For long enough to go anywhere. And I mean anywhere. You're talking, there are trillions upon trillions upon trillions of galaxies in the observable universe. We don't even know how big the universe is. We think we know how big the observable universe is. That number gets revised every few years. But and so the people who made Star Trek were faced with the idea of, we've got to make this possible. We've got to make the possibilities believable. And I think that led to a whole way of writing and developing story ideas and series features that was all about having that feeling of, double word score coming up here, verisimilitude, that feeling of reality when it wasn't really real.
Yeah.
And the way that they handle it, that's one of the most brilliant things about Star Trek, is how brilliantly that has been handled. And I would warrant that has been maintained and grown beautifully. It's really the shining achievement of the franchise. That's why I was kind of excited about doing this stream, because I think the tech of Star Trek is one of the stars of Star Trek.
I would agree.
Go ahead.
They managed to establish so much technical speak.
Yeah.
In that is canon, that carries through, like people will reference like, Montgomery Scott developed this, or what, this is not like it's canonical, it's consistent, and they've managed to make it sound like actual stuff that exists or that could exist.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what verisimilitude is. It feels real. It feels logical. It feels consistent. It feels like if it really existed, this is what it would be like. When it passes that test, that's just good fiction. And the most outlandish, to me, the most amazing tech, the thing that really goes around the bend is in a total class by itself. It's the idea of the Borg. The tech of the Borg is, and the thing is, they didn't even exploit that much. They could have used the Borg as a dumping ground for plots that don't work, for scripts
yeah.
that got a problem with a script. Introduce the Borg and have them do something amazing, and they didn't do that. But if you look at what made up the Borg, what the Borg was, this, taking the best part of everything. If you were going to grow a culture, isn't that the way you would grow it? It might not be as brutal, might not be without, any care for the species which you are taking. But essentially, to me, the Borg was about unbridled exploitation.
Hi. What's up?
And may have actually been a little bit symbolic.
I think you're right.
May have been intended as symbolism for modern culture and how it's rapaciously just using all these just functionally positive things and not caring about the softer sides of human beings and so forth.
Unbridled imperialism.
Yeah, that's that sort of thing. Exactly. That's a great point.
And not only did the writers come up with something, brilliant with the Borg that was also technologically brilliant, they managed to come up with alien tech that still sounded like it was like possible.
Yes. Yeah.
Sure.
Buddy.
I mean, just and the other thing I want to make sure that we brought up was there anything that for anybody else? God damn it! Shut up, dog. Seriously, shut up. That's a good girl. Was there anything in tech, in terms of the technology, that was an absolute stinker that just went completely clank when they introduced it? As I go through my memory of Trek, and I may be blind to this because I'm willing to cut them just so much slack. I'm willing to just put up with a lot of stuff. But was there any technological innovation that you just went, nah, that just feels phony?
Warp 13.
Mm-hmm.
Warp 13.
Warp 13. Oh, in All Good Things.
All Good Things. Yeah, that's it. I was trying to think which one that was.
That was a little weird. Take us to Warp 13, and especially because not 3 or 4 years later, Tom Paris hits Warp 10 and goes all salamander, and freaking the medical ship the Pasteur can go to Warp 13 and everybody's just fine and dandy.
Oh, yeah. The new Enterprise, the three nacelled Enterprise that can do it too. But I mean, so there's two ships, but yeah, Warp 13. I don't have any problems with the transwarp conduits. I don't have any problems with slipstream drive. They're completely different technologies, so they're possible. But Warp 13, no, not possible. And why? Whatever happened to Warp 12 or Warp 10
and why
or 11?
13? Like, why 13?
Why? Exactly.
Yeah. Why specifically 13?
That's what doesn't ring true about it to me was 13. Seriously, that if they had said Warp 11, I'd probably say okay, it's just one of those moments, right?
Yeah, it goes to 11.
13. Yeah,
you're right.
Warp 13 just sounded contrived to me. That's all.
But this warp drive goes to 11.
Yeah.
Just don't rip the dial off when you put it there. No. Warp 13 was a little clunky.
That's one I can really think of. That was just like, what?
I actually could not think of anything But when you bring that one up, yeah, that did seem a little bit odd and phony to me. Just something that didn't work. I was trying to think of any of the Ferengi artifacts. I seem to remember there was something that I just went, no. But I don't know the Ferengi tech well enough to speak to that. I can't remember what I was trying to, we had one of those little proto memories. There was something about a Ferengi. I kind of went, what? And I can't recall what that is. May have to do with their culture. Pardon me?
Neon bullwhips.
The bullwhips. That's not what I was thinking of.
I saw that Dio used those in 1986 on stage. I saw the show.
That's funny.
It is, man.
I've seen that. But like something like in the original series, right? You would never think of or in the 60s, you would never think of something like a pad or a tablet, right? And then in TNG, we get that next step, right? The pad. Because didn't everybody kind of just dictate in the
pretty much all the technology was pad technology, was surface, all the buttons and stuff were all just surface on the glass.
You know what I would really, I know I'm kind of jumping a little bit, but you know what I really think was a really cool little touch in Voyager's Year of Hell was the fact that Tuvok was able to still be a tactical officer because he had a tactile fucking interface on his he could activate a tactile interface instead of just the visual interface. And I'm like, that is so cool. And like we kind of have a sort of similar thing with refreshable braille displays where the braille it will change and pop up with whatever you're reading, but I mean for an entire console to be like that is so cool. That was so awesome.
Nifty.
And I have to say that as a blind person, if I could have Geordi's visor,
yes,
and literally see people lying to me,
right,
that would be cool.
Be able to look at a star and see the full spectrum of radiation. It changes the appearance of stars. One of the reasons I gave up stargazing habit, and I've owned several telescopes. I've spent a lot of money doing that. Was that the payoff that you get, with like a 3-inch refractor or a 16-inch reflector, and those are fairly expensive telescopes, is you see a little smudge off the distance, or you can see Saturn. You can actually see the bands on Saturn's. On the planet. You can see Jupiter's bands. You can even see the red spot. And you can see, 5 or 6 moons. And you just go, I'm out here freezing my ass off to look at the little white dot. There are some tremendous pictures of this that are taken with X-ray telescopes that show the full spectrum of radiation that's coming off this nebula or this star or whatever, and those are absolutely beautiful. And that was the cool thing that Geordi was able to see, was the full spectrum of anything. Basically, even if it was light, he could see it.
Even that failed, though. From time to time, there were things that didn't make sense with his visor, because him and Beverly are trapped in the shuttle bay moving deuterium things around, and he says, I'm gonna work on something. He walks over and he starts working on something, and Beverly walks up next to him and puts her hand on the wall and says, Geordi, this wall is hot. And Geordi turns to her and he says, where?
Yeah, he should have been.
What do you mean where? You were the one who should have seen it before she did.
But
Yeah.
it takes nerds like us to sleuth that stuff out.
Yeah.
For Mon Pa Kettle across these fruited plains watching this stuff, they never even thought about that.
Yeah.
I've seen a Mom Pa Kettle movie too. or two.
I saw the porn version, but
Oh God.
no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Get talk. Oh my God.
Just a funny thing to say, boys and girls.
It's true though, because he should have been able to detect the infrared from like the heat.
Absolutely. He should have warned her as she walked up to him. He should have turned her and said, "Be careful, that wall is hot." You know.
Maybe the heat wasn't coming off as infrared. What energy cannot Geordi see?
She literally says to Geordi, "This wall is hot." Word for
Yes,
word.
that doesn't mean it's infrared radiation.
That's true.
That mean it. And so you say, okay, well then how is the heat transferred to her hand? I'm walking through the logic of
How
this
about
too.
vibration sonic?
Yeah,
That's probably why.
yeah, you definitely can generate heat with ultrasound. My God, anybody's ever been burned by a half-assed dental hygienist knows that.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think. There are ways to. That's actually a good question. It's actually a good question because we are such slaves to the electromagnetic spectrum. We think that in order for energy to be passed, it must be passed as infrared radiation, but I'm not sure that that's true. I'm talking about kinetic energy, kinetic heat energy.
Right.
Not potential energy, not any other kind of energy. I'm talking kinetic, in motion, already released from its potential energy.
Right.
Can you conduct heat without infrared? And I think you can, because heat is just the state of faster vibrating molecules, basically. Molecules have more energy and they bounce against each other a little bit more, and then as they cool, they give up their energy states and they get less vibrationally vibrating. And so I don't know, I'm getting way too far into this, but I actually think that you could probably transmit heat energy in a way that does not involve electromagnetic radiation.
Google agrees with you.
Pardon me?
I said Google
does?
agrees with you. According to Google, no, heat is by definition the mechanical motion of atoms or molecules within an object material.
Yeah.
Infrared radiation is a very common result of objects being warm, but it is not heat itself, nor is it the only radiation emitted by hot objects.
Right, exactly.
Kinetic
So
molecules.
my chemistry minor was not in vain. Good.
But it may be the only way that we can
Perceive it.
I was going to say experience heat is through infrared radiation, because we're still limited by what her palm feels,
Yeah.
and that's always going to be, if she feels heat, then the body is only capable of registering that heat by infrared radiation.
I'm not sure that's true.
Gamma rays don't generate heat.
Uh,
X-rays don't generate heat.
if they transmit energy in some other way,
Like X-rays don't generate heat. If you ever gotten an X-ray, you know it doesn't get hot. Even the
Mine
camera
do.
itself
mine do. You don't know what I feel. All right.
us
That's a
humans.
very
We-
interesting.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a Vogon.
You're a photon, yeah. So we've got there are just so many awesome things that, and I would say that a lot of spacefaring has probably been pushed by, not just humanity's wish to explore, but just because Star Trek was such a phenomenon, that it touched everybody. And I would say that culturally it probably drove a lot of people to want to be involved in some facet of space, like astronomy.
That's the whole
or
basis of the guy who invented the Alcubierre drive. That's
Yes.
his last name. He
Yes.
specifically said that if he didn't see Star Trek, he would never have even thought about it.
The idea of creating a region of negative density in front of your ship and contracting space thereby, and doing the opposite in back of your ship, giving you a forward vector faster than the speed of light, that's so brilliant. I can't stand it.
That's a great explanation. It's so awesome. I can't stand it. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And I know all of you on this call, you have the same thing in your soul about technology that I do.
Yeah.
When you see a cool piece of tech, when you see something groundbreaking, even if it's just in your imagination when you're watching Star Trek, there's something that you just go, I just love the elegance of that, the functionality, the brilliance of it. It gives you optimism. We really are making progress in this universe that wants to kill us. The most vicious nursery, that you could possibly devise is a cosmic ray filled universe. You cannot kill people any more efficiently than the universe can.
Nope.
I've said to my friends many times, I wish I was born 500 years from now.
I don't think 500 is enough, Hammer. I think I think about 2,000. I think in about 2,000 years, the number of people born is going to be very low, and people are going to live a very, very long time. And they're going to have they're going to say, okay, we're going to have a new ration of births that's going to come out, and a bunch of new people can have babies, or maybe
have a lottery and shit.
Yeah, it might. That's a great thought. Or but because we're sending another arc out, and we have to train these people. They train them for 200 years and give them all the skills that they need, and then effectively a space arc goes out, and then that will be humanity's representation out to the stars. And it's meant that the generation even living for 2,000 years is still going to die on that ship. They will spend their lives, and their children, their grandchildren will spend their lives. But 10,000 years later, their kids will get to this planet that somebody has found a way to scope out and said, this is promising. Let's see if we can get humanity settled on an outpost here. I think in about 2,000 years, that type of thing will be a reality if humanity is still alive. If either nature or our own nature has not killed us.
Yeah.
But I have the same kind of thoughts about that you do.
There would definitely be Mormons in space.
With the communicator, and they're asking you about your auto insurance. It's like, oh man.
I did want to point out, next to cloaking technology, they're developing it right now. A armor to cloak the profile of like a tank, or they're applying it to ships and to helicopters now.
I saw the one that you can see through.
Well, it's basically, if you look at it through infrared, it gives, they can make it give off the reflection of like an SUV.
Yeah.
So make a full main battle tank look like an SUV under infrared light.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's cool.
That is cool shit.
Japanese folk have come up with something. Think of a like a big, 5 foot by 5 foot square thing that is opaque initially, and then when they pass it in front of you, you see what's behind you, but you don't see you.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the most eerie things I've ever seen. And that's been developed in Japan. There's one particular guy who is, just a real key on this. And that type of thing, that sort of thing, it's coming along. These things really are happening, and we're finding out a lot of information.
Well, I mean, we
about how to
developed
do this stuff.
hypersonic weapons,
Yeah.
that we're
Yeah.
fixing to deploy, So if we can go hypersonic, we can maybe go sublight.
Could you imagine if we had some of the weaponry that Trek? Like, could you imagine
Phasers?
if a country had a fucking tri-cobalt device?
Oh, we would be conquered by the Russians.
Or, a brace of quantum torpedoes?
No,
Oh,
phasers. Just phasers.
Just face it, yeah.
Just phasers. That's all that you would need. You could
Yeah.
conquer the United States with phasers.
Energy weapons, yeah.
Yeah, and
Or
you just kill people until there aren't any more people.
Several grains of antimatter, man. Shit, if you want to
Yeah,
make a dirty bomb.
Yep.
that's the ultimate dirty bomb. It's dirty with energy.
So, vanish shit.
If you actually do the math, and I have done this because it doesn't really involve anything more than algebra, truly. If you do the math and you find out how much energy is released from, like, at the molecular level, that and it's pretty easy to do. There is a shit ton of potential energy just in the common ordinary atom. The way that we make explosives now is we do things like we get a bunch of really big atoms and combine them with a bunch of little atoms, typically nitrogen and iodine or fluorine or something like that, where the atoms have vastly different sizes, and then you basically separate them and let them crash into each other. And when that happens, you get a release of energy. You get a very large release of energy as those bonds are separated. When you do that with matter, and you do it at the quark level, holy shit. The energy yield is measured in millions of electron volts, wait for it, per atom.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. I mean, in antimatter, one of the things that, I was thinking about with an antimatter drive, because I just did a little back of the thumb calculation to, figure out what it would what the energy cost of getting a big ship in orbit moving and all that kind of stuff. The big problem that I see with an antimatter drive is keeping the antimatter reaction small enough.
Yeah.
Is feeding small enough, because you were talking about feeding in stuff at the you were counting molecules basically.
Well, and
feeding them in if you wanted to build a real antimatter drive.
Well, and you'll see even in Star Trek, like what happens when the antimatter injector ports fuse. There's a big panic.
Yeah.
Right? Or if the injector ports are fused open, right, and it's just dumping over, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's just overpouring antimatter, and
you will not notice your own death.
There is legit panic because it's like they don't, and it's a scary thing to mess with in matter antimatter.
But the thing of it is the tolerances are so small. The amount of antimatter that you have to use in order to fling enough matter out the back, fling enough mass out the back to get a spaceship going, you really don't need very much antimatter. It's very tiny in terms of the size of, it's not like you're, a pound of fuel would last you for 100,000 years.
Yeah.
100,000 years, probably 100 million years. Seriously. I mean, that's the kind of numbers. That's it. The scale that you're talking about is just tremendous. I don't know why I got out. Some of the stuff just fascinates me.
Can we just talk about how awesome it would be to have a holodeck? Like seriously.
Never leave.
You're right. I don't understand how holodection is not rampant in in the Star Trek universe. Like, there's
Basically, have whatever you want.
You know, what is the worst duty in the world? All right, you've got extra duty. You've got to go clean out the porn holodeck.
right. That would be the punishment for the ensign.
But the ship is self-cleaning. You wouldn't even have anybody.
Yeah,
clean it. It would clean itself.
replication technology where they could
It was just a joke.
repurposed.
It was a joke, not
You
a
don't
serious
have-
suggestion.
You
Just
don't
a
have to
joke.
do that. The ship will clean itself.
I know. That's
Good for the bloody ship. Um, oh,
So
God.
yeah. I mean, you could, on the mass of a Tribble, you could run for 100,000 years. That'd be interesting.
Imagine if
could
everybody
could
had
use
their own
them a Tribble.
holodeck. 'Cause
Oh
the
my God.
The
a
holodeck would be
personal
relatively
holodeck?
small compared to your house,
Yeah.
right? You wouldn't need a big one.
No, not
So
at all.
you can actually save room as long as you had the ability to keep it, in power. You have everything. You have your inside. You're in your house, which is this 5,000 square foot mansion, but in the reality on the outside, it's only like a 10 by 10 foot room.
That was one of the things about holodecks that it didn't bother me exactly. It's just something I was always conscious of, and I keep thinking about what it takes, what the energy cost, and what the economic cost of putting a room the size of a gymnasium on a ship, and and I always thought that holodeck should be smaller. It should
And
be
on
big
the
enough
Enterprise,
to
there are like 6 of them.
yeah, and yeah, exactly, and in terms of what it cost to get out of this big deep gravity well of ours that we call Earth is man, that is a ton of money. But on the other hand, they're post scarcity, so
Yes.
that's another item is that we don't realize this now, but we're actually transitioning to a post scarcity economy. If you think about human beings throughout history, we've passed from where people didn't, people had to struggle, and not everybody was successfully able to do that just to have clothes,
Yeah.
just to have shelter, just to have food. We're getting to the point where everybody in some form has those things all around the world. And that's been a tremendous step forward. If you compare the way we live now to the way we lived back in, say, about the year 1200, it's a lot different. And
Even
that's just the course of my lifetime.
Even the well-off people in, say, 1200.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean,
If
you
you were
look better than
comparing
Henry
them-
VIII.
If you compared them to today's well-off people,
Right.
they would, like, I think the only thing that they might be rich in comparatively is property.
That's true. Henry III of England had the only commode in Britain.
And it definitely wasn't like today's commode. That's
No,
for sure.
it wasn't. I've actually seen it, and it essentially was a chair in one of his rooms, where he could have some privacy, and he would sit and contemplate. Occasionally, even have audiences while on the throne, so to speak.
Oh my.
And it was basically a pit with a door below it, where some poor servant got to clean up
Clean it
after
out.
his king.
Yep. No, it's there's and the thing is I keep comparing because when we start Next Generation and Q is fabricating the courtroom, right? We even hear mention of Picard and them saying this is from the 21st century in the Postatomic Horror, right?
Yeah.
And I look at what's going on right now in real life, and I'm like, are we going to have a post-atomic horror? Like, are we going to blow each other to bits first, and then, you know, like,
I don't think that will happen. People are just too scared to do it.
yeah.
Well, and the other thing is that people who want to control other people are the ones who go for power in our countries.
Yep.
What I'm concerned about is that we're going to develop an oligarchy system where we're going to have a bunch of ruthless oligarchs ruling us and controlling a lot of aspects of our life we're not accustomed to having them control. I think you're starting to see that in Canada. But anyway, this is a Star Trek stream there, Skep. So stop with the sociology.
Another thing that I would really wish for is something like Doc.
Oh, yeah.
Holographic doctor.
Could you imagine how much healthcare would be improved if we had an army of doctors with that much knowledge,
Who were that superb, that skilled,
like
that
would be fantastic. Like, I would even put up with the bedside manner. You know what I mean? Like,
I like this bedtime man.
I do too. I
never
don't think
got
there's
why
anything
people bitched about it. It was like,
He-
you have crappy bedside manner. No, he's
he's a cis white male. You know, he just cis white males are bad.
It's funny if you see Robert Picardo in Stargate Atlantis, and then you see him in Voyager, how the Doctor is nothing like.
he's like
What's the name in Wallaby?
I
Wallaber?
I cannot
Washley?
remember.
Something like that. Began with a W.
Wosley?
Yeah, began with a W. I
Something
can't remember what it
like
was like, but the point is, the actor, you don't see any of the Doctor.
Oh God, no. No,
So
he
that-
did
the-
an SG.
Ricardo can actually act.
Yes, he can.
Yeah, you can, very much so.
He's great.
Yeah, he was much different in whatchamacallit as well, with the Orville. His part in the Orville was like, that's not the holographic Doctor at all.
Woolsey,
I like
Richard
him.
Woolsey
Woolsey, that's it. Woolsey.
in
Thank
Stargate.
you.
Yeah, I'm not a big Stargate person, so
Neither am I.
I had to look
Especially
it up.
Especially Universe. I did not like.
I'm big on Atlantis. I love Atlantis.
I tolerated SG-1 because it's not. It's definitely not something that I would look forward to and be like, oh look, Stargate's on. But if I walked into the room and Stargate SG-1 was on, I would sit down and because Pincalo loves SG-1.
Yeah,
And
Well, the
so
reason
I
I like
would,
SG-1 or Atlantis so much is because it has Connor Trinneer, Trip from Enterprise.
yeah.
It has Robert Picardo from Voyager, and it has Jules State from Firefly. Like
I
all my
love-
favorite shows. You know,
I loved Firefly. I love that
I
show
love
so
Jules
much.
State.
Yeah. But interesting thing, from 1995 to 2001, Robert Picardo played the role of emergency medical hologram in Star Trek Voyager. And before being accepted for the role, interestingly enough, he auditioned for the role of Neelix.
Really?
He almost was Neelix. Yeah. Yeah.
I
He
don't
also
see that at all.
he directed 2 episodes of the show too. I did not know that he did a directorial turn, but he did. And he wrote a book in 2002 called The Hologram's Handbook, and you can buy that. It is published by Pocket Books,
Interesting.
and
It's amazing how often that happens where people are going for roles that they didn't get, but they got a different role that they're much better suited for. The same thing with Troy and what's her face, the blonde chick, Denise Crosby.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Can you imagine them swapping those roles?
No.
Where Marina Sirtis is the security guard?
No.
Oh man, that would have been bad.
The guy who started all that, in my opinion, was the guy who played Fester on the TV show The Addams Family.
Yeah.
He wanted that role so badly. Jackie Coogan, I think, was his name. He wanted that role so badly. He showed up. They did an initial audition, and they said, we're just meh. We're kind of meh. And he said, give me another chance. He went and got the costume. Was the costume he ended up doing on the show. Shaved his head, came in, put a light bulb in his mouth, and it went on. And he said, I am Fester Adams.
That's awesome.
And
want to roll,
and
man. Go for it.
They gave him the part on the spot. They just said, "Yep, call it, done and done."
Great.
Yep.
So I have a question. I don't do a lot of trying to write my own Star Trek book or direct my own Star Trek movie. I don't do a lot of that, and I kind of shy away from that whole idea. But just the other day, a friend asked me, if there was a linear concept beyond DS9 and Voyager, if there was another show that was in that same vein that we never got, because we got STD and Picard, which are not in that vein. They are completely different shows. But if there was something after Voyager that was in line with Voyager, because Enterprise happened before, even though it was broadcast after. But what development and tech would you have liked to have seen next in a next version of that style of Star Trek?
See, I actually had an idea that for like a fan fiction type of thing, where a new ship is designed to travel intergalactically. Because they debriefed Voyager's crew and like figured out how to develop one of the technologies that they've discovered, like coaxial warp or something like that, right? The faster
Coaxial
travel.
drive.
Yeah.
And so my premise would be that the crew of Voyager is having so much trouble reacclimating to life on Earth that Starfleet has decided that they will crew this new ship with some members of, like, I would do kind of like a TNG Voyager thing with some members of the Enterprise crew, like lower members maybe, to help bolster the crew, because it would be a slightly bigger ship than Voyager, and they would like go and explore different galaxies instead of like go off back to deep space. Like that would be my next thing.
I want to know what's beyond space.
Holy crap.
But what
That's a
tech would you
mind-breaker.
like to see in the next iteration of a Star Trek that followed the TNG DS9 Voyager platform, where they're going to explore space? What tech would you like to see developed next in that line?
I would like to see better, what was that shielding they called it? Metaphasic shielding? Like, I would like that technology to be explored, so that they could maybe go and actually explore, like, insides of stars or gas giants or stuff like that. Like, I think that would be really cool.
What do you think, Skip?
The idea of understanding what happens inside a black hole is intriguing to me.
So what tech would do that?
Yeah, it would be a tech to provide a way to go into the region. You couldn't really go into the black hole, but you could get inside the event horizon.
So like a ship that can handle the forces of being inside a black hole?
That would be part of it. But the other part is it would also have the ability to do some kind of a reality shift so it could step out of the event horizon, because that's what you have to do mathematically.
Like temporal shielding, maybe?
I don't even know. I mean, you could
Interesting.
you could it's just not even a fully formed idea. I've got a dog who's struggling in my arms, so I'm trying to keep her from barking. It's not a completely fully formed idea, but the idea of being in a place where the dynamics of normal space-time really truly don't operate the same way they do. Quantum world takes over and every
Oh, I think that the dog muted him.
Irate, what do you think? Uh-oh. I don't think Irate's here.
fucking dog.
About what?
Oh, what type of... So if you were to come up with... Or
Don't lean
what,
against
if
the
you
microphone,
would
baby.
like to see new tech in, like, if somebody made a continuation of, like, the TNG Voyager DS9 timeline, like, what kind of tech would you like to see? Like, either
Phasing.
more fleshed out or...
Phasing, like a
brand
phasing
new.
cloak in a ship.
Yeah, like a phase, being able to phase the solid matter
Oh,
okay.
as a tactical.
Phasing cloak, yeah.
Yeah.
From the Pegasus, right?
That would
Right,
be
exactly.
That would be cool.
That might be useful with a black hole.
We're
Yeah.
still developing it.
Yeah.
I always wanted to
No.
see a full-sized battleship, something as big as the Enterprise, not like the Defiant, which is relatively small, but
Yeah.
something big that's designed specifically to be the badass. I mean, I understand people will argue with me about how great the Defiant is, and that's a thing. But can you imagine something more capable than the Defiant and the size of the Enterprise? I'm talking about not only energy absorbent shields that we have now, not only metaphasic shields, but refractive shields,
Oh, wow.
where if you
that would-
shot at it, it would bounce off.
Maybe
You
it
know,
would bounce
energy
back.
absorbent. Oh, yeah, an energy absorbent shield that when you shot at it, it would absorb the energy and give it to the rest of the ship. So firing on it made it stronger.
Oh, there's actually a D&D monster called the Shambling Hulk.
Yeah,
That
I've
when-
seen this in other.
That when you hit it
videos
with
and stuff,
lightning,
yeah.
when you hit it with lightning, it gets stronger. It
Could
gets
you
more hit points.
imagine? Could you imagine if we had a battleship that was the size of the Enterprise that used the energy draining technology that was found in those booby traps that that the Primalian battle cruiser was caught in, that Picard and the Enterprise found and they got caught in. Those energy, like, as the more energy you use, the stronger those traps get.
Yeah.
But put those into shields, and then get the ablative hull armor that the Delta Flyer
I was gonna
from
mention that.
the future had.
I have all this kind of written out about things I wanted to have, and just the shields was
Yeah.
just the beginning. It would have a blade of armor as well,
Yeah.
but not only would it have a warp core, it would have 3 warp cores for the extra energy. And not only would it have a main computer, but it would also have a battle computer that would come online whenever they got into red alert.
Right.
That would do things like, oh, we have a hull breach. Well, it would automatically seal it. There would be no command to do it. The battle computer would already see it.
Yeah.
Shields that can be dropped in perspective, so that if they wanted to beam someone aboard while they're in battle, then it would open a hole in a part of the shield that would allow people to be beamed through. And if somebody did blow a hole that people were ejected through, the battle computer would automatically open a hole in the shields, transport that person to sick bay, and then close the shield in that portion again, a portion that wasn't being attacked. You know, a battleship that would be formidable far beyond what we've seen
Almost
so
a
far.
Smart battleship.
Yes, a smart battleship that was just 100% kick-ass.
And it had a shield that was actually a smart matrix kind of a thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Where you
I
could
mean,
control
all
the
these-
events that happen on it.
Right. and it would have levels of slipstream. It wouldn't just be a slipstream drive.
I like
It'd be
this.
slipstream 1, slipstream 2, slipstream, just like we have warp 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
So slipstream 8 would be an interdimensional drive almost. You'd be able to move between galaxies, like Blind Press was saying.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So you'd have
What?
warp drive for local travel, but if you decide you wanted to go to that galaxy over there,
Yeah.
okay, well we're gonna do
That's a
slipstream
good
there.
idea.
I like
I mean, just
that
a ship
idea.
that has all of these things that are just way beyond, not quite what we see with the time, because we see time ships
Yeah.
in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Not quite there. I don't want to be able to travel through time, but the ability to travel through space and to be a true warship. That I would have liked to have seen that in the next version of Star Trek.
I think that would have been cool.
Because the Enterprise has always been a character in the show.
Yes.
And they always seem to come up against people that are stronger than them all the time.
Or have some distinct advantage.
Yeah, like what was the battle cruiser with the two people on the planet that weren't real? He wiped out the Hoosnock.
Oh,
remember that ship that brought the Enterprise to his knees? It fired on him, and warp is in such a panic. Oh, shields are down.
Yeah.
That ship was just so much better than the Enterprise.
Yeah.
And of course you still have to have ships that could challenge it, or else it's a boring show.
Right.
They can kill everybody, but
you can't make the people immortal either.
invincible.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they wouldn't,
because otherwise everybody becomes a Mary Sue then.
yeah. But I would like to have seen the next iteration that went, okay, look, we've been explorers, we're running against people who keep kicking our ass. Now it's time for us to kick their ass for a change.
Yeah.
Well, and
where
especially
the
if
Romulans come up against them, and the Romulans are like, get away from me.
Especially
You're not
if you're
even
going
important.
to different galaxies, right?
Yes.
Like who the
Yes,
fuck
that's where
knows
that's
what
where
you're going?
Yeah.
And that's
to
where the
run
challenge
into.
would be, is you go to another galaxy where those people have shit like you, but now the Klingons and the Romulans and the Ferengi and all those people aren't really important anymore. You have to go to other galaxies to find the really big challenges, because you've moved beyond what these other local bad guys can do.
Yeah.
Now they're not really a problem anymore. I would have liked to have seen that. It's never going to happen. But
Just don't do a Slipstream 13.
I've talked about this to my friends many times when we get into discussions about Trek. I always bring up this idea of, I would have liked to have seen a really nasty battleship, something well beyond what the Defiant was doing.
Yeah.
But we won't see that.
I'm a fan of the Defiant.
And
She's
know.
fast and she's got a lot of guns.
And Slipstream 13 kind of brought us full circle.
Yep.
What happened to IP? We lost IP.
We've oh no, I don't see him backstage either. So
Oh yeah, it's in private chat. I have to go see y'all next week.
okay.
Okay. I'm gonna have to go too. I've already been summoned twice.
So on that note, guys, thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to send you guys a DM about an idea for next week, because I don't have one off the top of my head yet.
Oh boy.
So be sure to tune in next Saturday at 5 p.m. for another Star Trek stream, and catch me on Monday for the coffee stream. And of course, Minions tonight. It's Harry's.
Harry is doing it, and I'll be there.
All right. And thank you all for watching, and have a great rest of your weekend.
This dog will not be there.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.